Breadwinner Chapter 13. But you've never even met him, Parvana exclaimed to Noria the next day at noon. It was the first chance they'd had to talk about it, just the two of them. Of course I've met him. His family and ours were neighbors for many years. But that was when he was a boy. I thought you wanted to go back to school. I will be going back to school, Noria said. Didn't you listen to anything Mother was saying last night? I'll be living in Mazar-e-Sharif, in the north. The Taliban aren't in that part of Afghanistan. Girls can still go to school there. Both of his parents are educated. I can finish school, and they'll even send me to the university in Mazar. All of this was written in a letter that had arrived while Parvana was out at work. The women in the groom's family belonged to the same women's group as Mother. The letter had passed from one member of the group to another until it finally reached Mother. Parvana had read the letter, but she still had a lot of questions. Do you really want to do this? Noria nodded. Look at my life here, Parvana. I hate living under the Taliban. I'm tired of looking after the little ones. My school classes happen so seldom, they're of almost no value. There's no future for me here. At least in Mazar, I can go to school, walk the streets without having to wear a burqa, and get a job when I've completed school. Maybe in Mazar I can have some kind of life. Yes, I want to do this. There was a lot of discussion in the following few days about what would happen next. Parvana, out at work, had no voice in these discussions. She was merely informed of the plans when she got home in the evening. We'll go to Mazar for the wedding, Mother announced. We can all stay with your aunt while the wedding is prepared. Then Noria will go to live with her new family. We will return to Kabul in October. We can't leave Kabul, Parvana exclaimed. What about Father? What will happen if he gets out of prison and we're not here? He won't know where to look for us. I'll be here, Mrs. Weir said. I can tell your father where you are and look after him until you get back. I'm not sending Noria off to Mazar all by herself, Mother said, and since you are a child, you will come with us. I'm not going, Parvana insisted. She even stamped her feet. You will do as you're told, Mother said. All this running around wild in the streets has made you think you're above yourself. I'm not going to Mazar, Parvana repeated, stamping her feet again. Since your feet want to move around so much, you'd better take them out for a walk, Mrs. Weir said. You can fetch some water while you're at it. Parvana grabbed the bucket and got some satisfaction out of slamming the door behind her. Parvana glowered for 3 days. Finally, Mother said, You can take that awful frown off your face. We've decided to leave you here. Not because of your bad behavior. A child of 11 has no business telling her mother what she will and will not do. We're leaving you here because it will be too difficult to explain your appearance. Your aunt will keep your secret, of course, but we can't count on everyone to be so careful. We can't take the chance of word about you getting back here. Although she was glad to remain in Kabul, Parvana found herself sulking that they weren't taking her with them. I'm not satisfied with anything anymore, she told Shazia the next day. Neither am I, Shazia said. I used to think that if only I could sell things from a tray, I'd be happy. But I'm not happy at all. I make more money this way than I did as a tea boy, but it's not enough to make any real difference. We still go hungry. My family still argues all the time. Nothing is better. What's the answer? Maybe someone should drop a big bomb on the country and start again. They've tried that, Parvana said. It only made things worse. One of the women in the local branch of the women's group was going to accompany Parvana's family to the city of Mazar. Her husband would go with them as the official escort. If the Taliban asked, Mother would be the husband's sister, and Noria, Mariam, and Ali would be the nieces and nephews. Noria cleaned out the family cupboard one last time. Parvana watched her pack up her things. If all goes well, we'll be in Mazar in a couple of days, Noria said. Are you scared? Parvana asked. It's a long journey. I keep thinking of things that can go wrong, but Mother says everything will be fine. They would be traveling together in the back of a truck. As soon as I get out of Taliban territory, I'm going to throw off my burqa and tear it into a million pieces. Parvana went to the market the next day to buy the family some food for the journey. She wanted to buy Noria a present, too. She wandered through the market looking at things for sale. She finally decided on a pen in a beaded case. Every time Noria used it at university, and later when she became a real school teacher, she would think of Parvana. "We'll be gone for most of the summer," Mother reminded Parvana the night before they left. "You'll be fine with Mrs. Weira. Do what she tells you and don't give her any trouble." "Parvana and I will be good company for each other," Mrs. Weira said. "And by the time you get back, the magazines should be coming in from Pakistan, all printed and ready to distribute." They left very early the next day. The mid-July morning was fresh, but held the promise of hot weather to follow. "We'd best be going," Mother said. Since there was no one else on the street, Mother, Noria, and Mrs. Weira had their burqas flipped up so their faces could be seen. Parvana kissed Ali, who squirmed and fussed, grumpy from being woken up early. Mother got him settled on the floor of the truck. Parvana said goodbye to Miriam after that, then lifted her into the truck. "We will see you by the middle of September," Mother said as she hugged Parvana. "Make me proud of you." "I will," Parvana said, trying not to cry. "I don't know when we'll see each other again," Noria said just before she climbed into the truck. She had Parvana's gift clutched in her hand. "It won't be long," Parvana said, grinning even though tears fell from her eyes. "As soon as your new husband realizes how bossy you are, he'll send you back to Kabul as fast as he can." Noria laughed and climbed into the truck. She and Mother covered themselves with their burqas. The women's group member and her husband were sitting in the front seat. Parvana and Mrs. Weira watched and waved as the truck drove out of sight. "I think we could both use a cup of tea," Mrs. Weira said, and they went upstairs. Parvana found the next few weeks to be a strange time. With only herself, Mrs. Weira, and Mrs. Weira's grandchild, the apartment seemed almost empty. Fewer people meant fewer chores, less noise, and more free time. Parvana even missed Ali's fussing. As the weeks went by, she looked forward more and more to everyone coming back. Still, she did enjoy having more free time. For the first time since Father's arrest, she took his books out of their secret place in the cupboard. Evenings were spent reading and listening to Mrs. Weira's stories. Mrs. Weira believed in trusting her. "In some parts of the country, girls your age are getting married and having babies. I'm here if you need me, but if you want to be responsible for yourself, that's fine too." She insisted that Parvana keep some of her wages as pocket money. Sometimes Parvana would treat Shazia to lunch at one of the kebab stands in the market. They'd find a sheltered place to go to the bathroom and keep working all day. Parvana preferred to come home at the end of the day rather than at noon. It meant that one more day was over and her family would soon be home. Toward the end of August, there was a bad rainstorm. Shazia had already gone home. She had seen the darkening sky and didn't feel like getting wet. Parvana wasn't so clever, and she got caught in the rain. She covered her tray with her arms to keep her cigarettes dry and ducked into a bombed-out building. She would wait out the storm there and go home when it was over. The darkness outside made the inside even blacker. It took a while for her eyes to adjust. While she waited for that to happen, she leaned against the doorway, watching the rain turn Kabul's dust into mud. Gusts of wind mixed with driving rain forced Parvana deeper inside the building. Hoping there were no landmines, she found a dry spot and sat down. The pounding of the rain beat a steady rhythm as it hit the ground. Parvana began to nod. In a little while, she was asleep. When she woke up, the rain had stopped, although the sky was no lighter. "It must be late," Parvana said out loud. It was then that she heard the sound of a woman crying.